Well, hello BC, Uncle Roddus here again. Right, I'm going to do this again because I just recorded this whole fucking video and the camera wasn't playing. Would you believe it? And yeah, that wasn't good. So, second attempt here. There's no lights on the front of my camera to indicate to me when this is going to stop either, because I'm using my digital camera here, which has got a much better resolution on it than my stupid little laptop, which is awful. But unfortunately, to get longer videos, I can get 20 minutes out of it, or I can reduce the quality, but 20 minutes is pretty much enough. Well, not too good today. I've got a bit of a head cold. I've been sneezing and full of crap and snot and headaches and that. It's a beautiful day outside and I could be out in the garden, but unfortunately I'm not feeling particularly energetic. So I've been doing a bit of invoicing because I need to pay for all these records that I buy. So yeah, I've been out there storming the vinyl and got quite a few come in the post this week, and went into town yesterday to take the missus out for lunch for her birthday, yeah, which was interesting, both of us being a bit sick, and got to pop into the record shop and bought her some some DVDs and myself some records. So let's kick it into gear. What we were listening to and what we're listening to right now is off this thing here. Now this is another one of those obscure English post-punk early 80s compilations called Unzipping the Abstract Bands of the Manchester Musicians Collective. This is somewhere around 1980, 81 possibly. I'm not quite sure if there's a date on it. Not really, can't see one. Anyway, so a bunch of pretty much never heard of bands like the Bathroom Renovations, Dislocation Dance, the Hopes, If Only, the Liggers, the Spurts. It's a nice wee compilation. It's pretty local, not the best one I've heard, not quite up to the same standards as the Scottish Culture one that I showed the other week, but I'm pleased to have this. I'm liking it and I'm getting used to the songs. I had reviewed it on my blog because I'd listened to it off another blog and had reviewed it, and I only gave it 3.5 stars, but I think it's a little bit better than that once you get the hang of it. So there's that, and then in the post this week came this new album. So a few of you may have seen this. I've seen it floating around on the YouTube VC page on Facebook. And this is a Sleaford Mods Key Markets album from earlier this year. This is just fantastic record. The guy's got such a way with words, so there's a lot of swearing on it. It's probably got the most swearing I've heard on a record for quite some time. But also, this is the best post-punk influenced album I've heard in many a year. These guys are pretty much just the bass and drums and the rapping, ranting lyrics, vocals that he does, but it's really cool. I highly recommend that. Pleased to have a copy. Wasn't going to buy it on CD, vinyl, was going to pick up a CD copy, but it was actually a reasonable price. It wasn't $50 like a lot of them are. So the shopping side of things, yesterday we picked this up. This is an album that I had many years ago, early Cabaret Voltaire, when they were still, well, minimum synth or industrial. They were actually lumped in with the industrial thing. I just went to play this morning, and wouldn't you know it, it's fucking buckled. It's got a wee buckle right on in the start, just in one area, and it's enough for the needle just won't play on it. It just jumps and skips around, so I'm going to have to take it back. Now they did have another copy in the shop, so I'm hoping that will still be there when I get back. Excuse me. Cheers. I need to wash my throat down a bit. Right. So next one, another Cabaret Voltaire, 1980. This one was on Rough Trade. This here is a New Zealand copy. I didn't know these were released actually locally. I always thought they were on import. But Cabaret Voltaire's Voice of America. This is a fantastic album. I had to listen to it last night, and just, yeah, it's so good. I didn't have this back in the day, but I was familiar with it because they got a lot of radio play on the student radio station back in those days, which is how I sort of got onto it. Okay, so another one that came in the mail this week. This is another one of the Red Hot and Blue charity compilations. Of course, it's a second hand because they're not really that hard, not that available brand new out of print sort of thing. So this is the Cole Porter tribute album for AIDS, AIDS research and release. So those who saw my other video with the Dark Was the Night album, this is kind of like a much earlier version from 1990. It's so all the songs are Cole Porter songs, and it's got people like Neneth Cherry, the Neville Brothers, Sinead O'Connor, Debbie Harry with a duet with Iggy Pop, Kirsty MacColl and the Pogues. Yeah, some pretty interesting. I haven't listened to it. Tom Waits. I've listened to the second album, which has got U2, Katie Lang, Thompson Twins, Jungle Brothers, Lisa Stanford. Some of it's a bit, mellow, and croony for my liking, but there is some interesting sounding. So yeah, looking forward to checking the rest of that out. And there's a few other compilations that the Red Hot and Blue did that I'm quite interested to hear. So back to the shop yesterday, and I picked up this Stevie Wonder album. So not one I'd heard before, but I knew about it. And so The Secret Life of Plants from 1979. So there was quite a gap between his Keys and the Song of Life album and this album, something like 3 years. So this is a double album. Covers in really good nick. Vinyl's in very good nick. It's had a listen to some of it last night. It's quiet, very quiet record. It's very laid back, almost ambient in some of its textures. But this is from a really constructive and creative period of Stevie's career, and he released half a dozen pretty much classic albums, some of which I have on CD, but the rest I would like to get on vinyl. Now the next one here, Roger Coleman, you'll probably know this one if you're watching. Yep, this is our friend Miles Davis. So this I saw, this is in the shop it's been sitting in there for a couple of visits now actually, and I decided to take a gamble because I wasn't familiar with it. But it's called Agata, and it's Miles Davis live in Osaka, Japan in 1975. So it's pretty much a fusion record. It's not really particularly jazzy at all, to be honest, what I've heard of it. It's highly rated. This is a 2011 reissue by Four Men with Beards, which I think is a pretty cool name. I think the cover's just fantastic. It's heavy duty vinyl. Sounds pretty cool. I gave it one of the records a spin last night, and I'm pretty impressed so far. So I'm pretty happy to have that. Next album I picked up was this one. This is probably quite familiar to a lot of people, Wishbone Ash. This is the Argus album, which I think is pretty much considered to be their best record. I was actually after an earlier album, and I think it's their self-titled one, and it's got a song called Blind Eye, which I really like, which is the first time I heard on them, which I used to have on a compilation tape I made up years ago. My partner Lynn asked me if they were Star Wars fans, and I said, well, they actually predate Star Wars, but there's a very Darth Vader looking figure on the front, and there's a flying saucer on the back of it. So I actually haven't had a chance to listen to this one yet. It's on this afternoon's list once I get this video finished. So, staying with the early 70s, we have next up this one here, Amon Dole 2, live in London from 1974. I think this cover is just awesome. It's just a fantastic cover. And this has the track Archangel Thunderbird, which is my favourite track from these guys, and I was trying to find the album that they put that out on originally, which is called Phallus Day, or Phallus D, which is one of their more popular, I think, and more critically acclaimed records from what I've seen. But unfortunately they didn't have a copy. They had some other records there, which I may get my hands on if funds allow later on, but they are quite pricey. I paid $40 for that. It's in very good condition, not mint or near mint. Next up we picked up was this one, and I've had this many years ago on vinyl as well, and this here is 1972. Now again, it's probably a pretty well known record in the community. Hocus Pocus was the track that attracted me to this, which is pretty well known, and it is a bloody fantastic track. Jan Ackerman, who is a guitarist, you might remember from an earlier video, I had an album by a band called Brainbox, which was a precursor to these guys back in the late 60s, early 70s. is a pretty cool record. Okay, so the next lot have come in the mail this week. So we start off with this. Now this is a New Zealand band, On and On, Home Baking. This record was out in 2007 on a label called Monkey Killer Records, and they are a vinyl specific boutique label. This is limited edition number 71 of 200. Now this is you know, post-punky indie pop, you know, a Flying Nun sound permeates a lot of this stuff, as it does with a lot of New Zealand music. So yeah, I picked this up for $15 actually. So you know, along with the other record I bought which I'm about to show. So I was quite pleased, and I'm impressed. And it even came with a CD, so I've got it on CD and vinyl, and I love the cover. I think the cover's pretty cool. I think the cover's very cool. So yeah, that was a cool score. It was a bit of a blind buy, but it's turned out to be quite good. But the one that I really was keen on was this one here, Triumphs. This is called Beekeeper Bastard Knocker. Again, Monkey Killer Records. Now this is number 70 of a limited edition of 100, so there ain't many of these around. So I got this through Bandcamp from their website. It linked me through to Bandcamp. Now the reason it's called Beekeeper Bastard Knocker was because it's kind of like a tribute to Sir Edmund Hillary, who most of you would know would be the first man to climb and conquer Mount Everest. And he was a beekeeper originally before he climbed Everest, and he made the statement when he got to the top, well, we knocked the bastard off, which is a typical Kiwi kind of thing to say. So this is kind of like what, stoner rock, kind of, it's melodic but heavy instrumental rock music. And I really am I'm not usually into this sort of music particularly, but this is a really good album, and it's pretty good. The only beef I have with it is that the vinyl's actually quite quiet, and this is the sort of music that you want to put up pretty loud, and unfortunately yeah, I've had to have the volume knob around a lot higher than I would do, and plus the other disappointing thing is that there's quite a lot of, it's quite a noisy record. It hasn't been particularly well pressed, but fortunately the music will drown that out. So this one here came in this week, and this is a compilation called Modulation and Transformation. This is volume 3. So this is out of Germany. This is 1998, and it's a whole bunch of experimental but techno-driven, you know, pieces, but not particularly danceable, I would say. Now, I've had to listen to a couple of the records. There's 3 albums here. I've had to listen to a couple of them, and you know, it's alright. There's a guy called DJ Spooky, that might be a name that some people will remember, but the rest of them, yeah, really have no idea. So this is an avant-garde experimental electronic in the vein of people like Morton Subotnick, who I showed a couple of records of recently. It's not that highbrow art, you know, stuff from the composering. This is more, like I say, it's more influenced by techno-y experimental music. So I don't know. It was a blind buy. It was something that looked quite interesting, and it wasn't hugely expensive. So I thought I'll give it a go. I think that it takes a bit of getting used to. So finally, I hope I've still got some time left here. So the word grail has been used, and I see it. People talk about albums that are called a grail album. It's just something they've been desiring or wanting for many years. Well, this one here arrived today. Now, I know you'll see the cover and you'll go, well, that's Joy Division, isn't it? And you'll be sort of partly right, but it's not. It's not quite the actual album that you think it is, because, well, you can see the cover is slightly different on the front than the first album. But so what happened was, when they first started out, they were known, they called themselves Warsaw, from my understanding, and they recorded an album for RCA Records with Martin Hammett producing it, and they were not happy with what they recorded, and apparently it revolved around something along the lines of there was a whole lot of synthesizer noodlings that were recorded over their recording. Now, so they didn't, the whole thing was shelved, and a lot of the songs were then re-recorded in a slightly different way and a slightly different sound, which we now know as the Joy Division sound. And you'll recognise things like Failures, Novelty, No Love Lost, Shadow Play, Interzone. These are living in the Ice Age. These are the original demo-y type versions. Now, I'm not sure about the synthesizers. I didn't really take much notice of the synthesizer on this, because this is just like a full-on punky, raw, demo-y type record, but really good quality recordings. But not, so not like bootleg, although this is a bootleg. I mean, this was never released. And this has just been blowing my mind for 35 years. This album is absolutely at the top of my list of, well, it's probably number 2 on my list of greatest records ever released. This is a bonus because I didn't have this on my original. This has got a little bonus 45 with 4 tracks on it, and I haven't actually listened to this yet. So the album's listed as JD, and it's called Warsaw. And as you can see, we have some nice yellowy orange coloured vinyl. So the story for me behind this record is that I had a friend in high school who was a huge Joy Division fan, and we all remember sitting on Saturday morning or whenever it was when our Ready to Roll was on, which was our version of the Top of the Pops kind of thing, and this Joy Division track called Love Will Tear Us Apart just basically bolted straight into number 1 and kind of blew everybody's mind. Yeah, so this guy, he was a huge Joy Division fan, and he had a lot of bootlegs that he picked up that were floating around the record shops at the time, and this was one of them, and he recorded it for me, and I had it on a cassette for many years, and I used to put it, and it was in my car always, and I would just play it all the time while I did a lot of travelling around the South Island. We would be cruising around, going on pub crawls in different towns and all that when we were much younger. And excuse me, I need to clear my throat again. And it just absolutely blew my mind. The pure raw energy of it is one of the. I don't think I've ever heard any punk that's got. Well, no, I had. There is some which I haven't got anymore, but that's another story. But it comes. This is the top of the list as far as a punk album's concerned. There's nothing that touches it, and the guitaring and the whole the reverb and the echo of it and the whole way it comes across. I mean, so what happened was that the tape died, and I never was able to find another copy, and then probably in the early 2000s I found it on CD actually in our local warehouse here, and it was on a little movie play CD that was, again, probably unofficial because it's not ever been released, and they absolutely fucked it. I've never heard a recording that had been remastered so badly. They basically wound up the bass and the drums to distortion levels, and they just overpowered everything else, so the vocals and the guitaring were just kind of like in the background, and it just absolutely destroyed it. And I was pretty gutted because I really wanted it, and so anyway, that got shelved, and then I searched on the internet and I found a copy that I downloaded off as a FLAC file and burned it to CD, and that was pretty close to this original, but it still had some of the end of songs were cut off. Excuse me, I've run out of voice. And so again, it wasn't the perfect facsimile of what I've got here. So this arrived this week, and so I played it to make sure it was the right one, and it was. And unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to really crank it. I mean, Lynn's been home sick most of the week. She's got a virus, and I've got this flu which came on later in the week, and so I had listened to it, but I haven't really had a chance to crank it big time. So I'm looking forward to that. She's back at work hopefully tomorrow on Tuesday, and so I've got the evenings to myself. So this is going to go up really fucking loud, and I'm just so looking forward to hearing it. So that's one of my grails, and this is just, I'm just rapt to have that. So that's me again for another video, and I've got a few more records coming from Discogs in the post and from local releases coming in as well, so I'll talk about those next time. But hey, hope you're all feeling a lot better than I am. Thank you.